In some ways, it's kind of an oxymoron about having a driver's license, but if you're not driving anymore, why do you need one? But sometimes you do.
And if you don't have a driver's license, do you actually need an ID, or what's the purpose of it as you get older and you aren't driving, or maybe aren't out and about as often? So we want to make sure that we get all the correct answers for you. We get a lot of questions about this. So we are bringing in Driver License Division Chief Sherry Gibson from the Texas Department of Public Safety. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We get so many questions about this because even if, as our parents get older, do they need that identification, if you will? And a lot of people have a lot of just comfort as they get older, even if they're not driving, about having that driver's license. So let's start with, do they need a driver's license, or do they need just an ID if they're not driving?
So it really depends on the family and the needs of the family. While there are certain aspects where an expired driver license is okay for identity purposes, there may be banking, financial, land, acquisitions or changes or medical issues that they may require a valid ID. So if the person is no longer driving, we do recommend that they get an identification card so they will have that for those purposes.
So just in case, and that way you've got all of that. Because I remember looking up when my mom's driver's license expired that she could still vote. I forget, there's an age at which if it expires, you're still able to vote.
Right. So for the voting purposes, driver licenses and identification cards are both acceptable forms of ID. They can be expired up to 4 years. And still be used for voting up until the age of 70. From 70 and above, the expiration date no longer matters. So once you've hit 70, you can use that expired card for voting purposes the entire time. The other thing is there is a website, votetexas.gov, and it has a complete list of documents and things that can be used for voting. So if you have a situation where you don't want to renew your driver license or you don't have an ID card, there's some other forms of identification that they can use so that they can still vote.
Okay, gotcha. Because that was a big issue for my mama. She wanted to make sure she could still vote. But then as we've sort of let that slide and it's expired now, I've started thinking about the fact of, okay, maybe she might need to have a valid ID for some other purposes as well.
Yeah. Like my mom's in memory care. She doesn't drive anymore. She doesn't vote anymore, but she might still need an ID. And two questions are, what do we do about getting an ID? But the second question is, because of being in memory care or assisted living or something like that, is there a better process of not having to take them somewhere if that's hard to do?
Okay, so there's actually there's a couple of options that we have depending on what their circumstances are. Obviously staffing is limited, so we can't do what we refer to as homebound visits on all individuals. But for individuals who cannot come to the driver license office for health reasons, we will have y'all coordinate with a local driver license office and have somebody go to the memory care facility and process that identification card. There is on the DPS website, dps.texas.gov, and I'll be happy to send you all of these links. On the driver license services page, there is a button towards the top that says assistance for people with disabilities. And so anyone who might have difficulty or need to come to the office at a specific time, like if crowds are an issue, anything like that, you can click on that button and submit a request and provide all the information. And then we'll get you in contact with somebody at a local office who will either make arrangements to get you into a driver license office at a time and a place that's convenient, or if they qualify, do the homebound visit.
Okay, so that's a great option for people who just, it really is just going to be either traumatic to bring them in, or they're just so bedbound, or just really have a lot of mobility issues.
Correct.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Can you switch basically from a driver's license to just an ID easily, even online, if the driver's license isn't expired yet?
No, as of right now, to do what we call an original transaction, which switching would be, you have to go into the driver license office. The department has started looking at what options are available to use our online processes. And so that may be available in the future, that you can do a conversion from a DL to an ID online. But as of right now, that has to take place in the driver license office.
Okay, gotcha. And is an ID, does an ID have an expiration on it? Do you have to renew those as well?
Yes, the ID does have an expiration on it. It is issued for a period of 6 years right now. And it has the same renewal processes that a driver license has. You have to come in at that 6th year. You are allowed every other renewal period to renew it online. For individuals who have those mobility issues and things where we do the homebound, we typically try and work it to where they can do a renewal through the mail process.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Okay.
is there any type of fee switching from driver's license to ID?
There is the card fee. So for a driver license, it's $33 for the driver license renewal. For an ID card, it's $15.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Because you had mentioned earlier before we started recording that after the age of 85, the driver's license only lasts for 2 years, but you said the ID lasts for 6. So it's almost smart if they're not going to drive to go ahead and switch to the ID because it lasts longer for one.
Correct.
Great.
Okay, gotcha.
Good to know.
Now, if we are going to be making the trek into a DPS office to bring our parent to either renew their driver's license or just switch to an ID, what's the simplest way to do it? I know some of them now you can make appointments. And how do we make sure that we're bringing all the information that we need to make it a seamless process?
Right. So you mentioned the appointments. The department has gone to an appointment solution. So all offices offer appointments for transactions now.
Okay.
And again, if you have something that we're, needing to make accommodation, that local office will help you get an appointment in the correct time that you need.
Mhm.
We are in a transition period. The driver license division started issuing real ID compliant cards in 2016. So part of that process requires us to get certain documents and keep those on file. So for now, what I would say is if you're coming in to convert from one card to another, you need to make sure and you bring the identity and the lawful presence document. So an example of that would be a certified copy or original birth certificate, or if they have a U.S. passport, a valid U.S. passport, bring that in. And then you would have the supporting document of a social security card if they have that. The other thing you would need is proof of residence. So 2 documents, and all of the list of those documents is all available on our website as well. And so since we are speaking about the older population as well, what happens with some folks is they were born at home, they've never gotten a birth certificate, and so that causes problems. We do have a real ID exception process. And so when you contact the local driver license office, they will help you through that process. And there's not a specific list of documents I can tell you to bring because we basically just try and use what they have. So it may be a family Bible, it may be census records, it may be employment records. It may be a combination of different things that allows them to meet all of those real ID, identity, and lawful presence requirements, and then allows us to issue that ID. But if you're in that situation, I would recommend you contacting us before you make the appointment and going into the office so that we can start that process ahead of time. So when you do go into the office, everything is just smooth and you get the card.
You bet. Does it make a difference if your driver's license is still current versus expired when you come in, if you're switching to an ID?
So for right now, again, we're still in the transition period. So if we already have your documents on file, then you wouldn't need to bring them in again. But if you don't have them on file, we would need them. So what we recommend to people, if they don't contact us ahead of time, we recommend that you just bring in all of the different documents you may need. And then that would save us the problem of having to send you away and having to come back with additional documents.
Gotcha. Okay. Because is there an easy way to find out if they just don't remember whether the last time they had their driver's license renewed, if they submitted all those documents, or do we just need to bring them just in case?
Yeah, the easiest way, if you want to try and find out ahead of time, the easiest way would be to send an email using our customer contact and just explaining what you want to do. And then someone will assist by looking at your record and making that determination and telling you specifically what you need to bring.
Okay, gotcha. So that could save you some digging up some old documents perhaps, or making sure that if they're not already on file, that you're sure to bring them so that it does, because it's frustrating, right? If you get there and you're like, oh shoot, I didn't have the right documents, and then you got to come back and do all that again. So
right.
Of course, we live in the state of Texas, and Department of Public Safety does driver's licenses in Texas, but we have people in the group from all over the country. I know it's going to be different in different states. Do you have a suggestion for what people should do in the different states to find out about what they need to do about their driver's license or an ID card?
So if they're trying to get a driver license or identification card in another state, the first thing I would recommend is go to that state's website. whatever agency it is that issues the driver license and the identification cards. And most of them, if not all of them, will have some kind of a customer contact. So if you can't find the information readily, I would fill out the customer contact information and submit it to them. And then that way they'll get back to you with the specifics of what you need to do or what requirements there are for your aging parents.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Okay, thank you for clearing up so much confusion.
Yeah, you're going to take away a lot of angst for a lot of people. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is good to know. And I guess really, so it sounds to me that the family just has to decide, does mom actually need a valid ID or can she, or dad, or can they do the things that they need to do? But nice to know that there's some options.
Yeah, and it's a personal decision that you just have to make. Hey, if you have any other topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Parenting aging parents.